Holley always showed up for her shift. On July 10, 2008, she did not. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Stay tuned as we uncover the first hours of a disappearance that would shock the military community. At the maternity ward of Womack Army Medical Center, Lieutenant Holley Lynn James Wimunc's cot sat untouched. No phone call. No answer. Her uniform hung neatly in the locker. It was unlike her. Friends texted. Colleagues called. Her voicemail filled. Then someone said, "Go look at her apartment." Immediately. When they arrived at her Fayetteville, North Carolina apartment, something didn't make sense, smoke staining the living room walls. A smell like gasoline hovered in the air. But no Holley. The fire alarms were silent. The kitchen knives from her butcher block were gone. A chunk of carpet from her bedroom floor had been cut out and removed. Investigators later noted the carpet removal. A piece of evidence removed. Blood spatter marked the floor. A hole in the closet door. Knives missing from the kitchen. Why remove that? Why cut the carpet? What were they trying to erase, but overlooked? Her friends went from confused to terrified in hours, because this was not her. They couldn't believe she vanished without a trace. She had children. She had commitments. She had a reputation for reliability. At 7 a.m. the next day, her car was still parked in the lot. No signs of forced entry. No note. Not even a goodbye message. The building held the smell of fire and failed escape, but the person was missing. The agents would soon say the blaze was no accident. It felt staged. Fumes of gasoline. Broken windows. Burned debris. Just 2 months earlier, Holley had filed for a temporary protective order. She claimed domestic problems with her husband, John Wimunc, a Marine stationed at Camp Lejeune. She did not show up at the follow-up court hearing. The restraining order lapsed. Many believe her fear remained. As investigators swept the apartment, the list of missing items grew. Along with knives, bedsheets were gone. A note, charred at the edges, bathroom walls still warm to the touch. Smoke detectors were unplugged. Friends pieced together the last evening. Holley had told a co-worker she'd be home early. She had joked about her kids. She never mentioned trouble. By midnight, she didn't return a call. Search teams scanned the perimeter. Neighbors reported seeing a man in dark clothing, carrying a bag, racing toward a black pickup around dusk the night before. Within the hour, her apartment became an active scene. K-9 units arrived, bomb squad gear arrived, forensic vans pulled up. Investigators cataloged the missing carpet. One commented, "Carpet soaks bodily fluids and evidence. To remove it is to remove a fingerprint of the crime." Holley was 24. A mother of 2. An Army second lieutenant. A nurse dedicated to helping others. The kind of person who would not vanish. Her children were with their father that day. Morning turned into afternoon with no word. Her name became a missing persons alert. Her colleagues posted flyers. The military base noticed. The apartment building locked down. The story now spread beyond Fayetteville. Questions multiplied. Why would she not call? Where did she go? Was it voluntary? Was she hiding? Or worse, was something unimaginable done to her? This was the moment when investigators knew this was no simple missing person. Something violent, something rushed, something desperate had taken place. The empty cot, the unanswered phone, the smell of gasoline, all signs pointing to the darkest possibility. In the next segment, we'll walk inside the investigation, the mounting evidence, and the people around Holley's life who would become part of the story. Stay with us. When a soldier is found dead or vanishes near Fort Bragg, every theory gets a hearing. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so you don't miss what we uncover next. Stay tuned as we dive into the theories that haunted the case of Lieutenant Holley Lynn James Wimunc. Investigators briefly wondered whether Holley's fate linked to other cases. A copycat note here, a chilling symbol there, but every lead had to stand up to evidence. That summer of 2008, Fayetteville was already on edge. 2 female service members missing or killed within weeks. One of them, SBC Megan Toma, found strangled in a hotel room, a Zodiac-style symbol smeared on the mirror. For Holley's case, the suspicion of a serial predator stalking military women loomed large. But pieces didn't fit. A letter in Holley's burnt apartment claimed she had shot herself. Investigators held it suspicious. The knives missing from the kitchen, the cutout carpet in the bedroom, all screamed premeditation, not random abduction. At home, Holley was fighting a different kind of battle. She documented bruises. She spoke of a man who terrified her. She filed for a protective order. May 19, 2008, she obtained a temporary protective order against her husband, Corporal John Patrick Wimunc, alleging that he held a gun to her head and threatened to kill both her and himself. 10 days later the order lapsed. Holley did not appear in court and the protection vanished. And when investigators began asking questions, new names surfaced, men who would not make this case simple. John Wimunc, Holley's husband, was promptly in NCIS investigators' sights. Holley's friends said the marriage was volatile. John could not handle her rank, her role, her independence. Holley's ex-girlfriend of John, Lindsay, became a person of interest after phone harassment allegations. Holley had accused her of calling at 3 a.m. and screaming threats. Then Kyle Alden, a fellow Marine in John's unit, borrowed a black pickup truck on July 9, the night before Holley vanished, a detail matching eyewitness statements of someone fleeing her apartment in a black pickup. NCIS agents visited every door on base. They tracked phone records, vehicle registrations, unit rosters. The black pickup became a focal point. Holley's apartment fire and missing items painted a scene of someone disposing of evidence, not a missing person seeking help. Between the violent marriage allegations, the protective order history, the ex-girlfriend harassment, and the borrowed truck tied to John's inner circle, the investigation developed layered possibilities: domestic violence, cover-up, even serial killer diversion. The serial killer scenario lingered until the suspects emerged. Investigators ruled out the copycat Zodiac-style theory as more evidence pointed inward. This was no random predator. While the symbol on the Toma case mirror and the taunting letters created terror, none of that fit the forensic trail in Holley's case. Holley was 24. She had served as a nurse at the maternity ward of Womack Army Medical Center at Fort Bragg. Her children were with their father the night she vanished. She told friends she felt trapped, she wanted out. But the stakes were higher than she realized. On July 9, 2008, Holley used an ATM and told a coworker she would be home early. She did not mention any danger. Her shift the next morning went unattended. Agents say that moment shifted the case from missing to murder. The knives missing from the butcher block in her apartment, and the cutout carpet in her bedroom were not incidental. They were intentional. Weapon removal, blood-soaked carpet removed, evidence targeted. Cutout carpet speaks to removal of bodily fluid evidence. Missing knives match later forensic recovery at the dump site. These details moved theory toward identity of perpetrator rather than remote predator. Holley's protective order filing is central. The threat in that document was real and documented. Investigators viewed domestic violence not as side story, but as core. When John Wimunc and Kyle Alden were arrested in July 2008, the serial killer angle lost momentum. The investigation locked onto this: a soldier murdered his wife, a Marine helped cover it up. Still, the various theories remain part of the public memory: serial predator, jealous ex-girlfriend, vengeful spouse, Marine Brotherhood cover-up. But the facts point to a combination of relationships, threats, and opportunity, not an outsider stalking service women. In the next segment we'll move deeper into the evidence: the forensic trail from the apartment to the kill site, the pickup truck link, the knife match, and how investigators finally turned theory into proof. Stay with us. Days after Holley vanished, forestry personnel found charred human remains more than 100 miles from her apartment. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you don't miss the full breakdown. Stay tuned as we uncover the evidence that broke this case open. Investigators unearthed a scene that was brutal and specific: knives in a burned pit, a hatchet nearby, evidence moved and staged. The charred remains of 2nd Lieutenant Holley James Wimunc were discovered by North Carolina Division of Forest Resources personnel near Sneed's Ferry, off the southern edge of Camp Lejeune, on July 13, 2008, after a fire at her Fayetteville apartment 3 days earlier. At her apartment, evidence of arson and tampering stood out: missing knives from her kitchen butcher block, a cut-out section of carpet in her bedroom, and blood spatter near a closet door. Investigators performing a forensic sweep noted 2 knives absent from the knife block. The missing blades raised immediate questions. Why remove them unless they were used or moved intentionally? Then the carpet piece. A chunk of carpet from the bedroom floor was deliberately removed, an indicator that someone sought to destroy fluid-soaked evidence like blood or trace fibers. At the burn site near Sneed's Ferry, a hatchet was found next to human remains which had been wrapped in an air mattress and placed in a shallow grave. Autopsy results later confirmed Holley had sustained a gunshot wound to the head prior to the burning. Described the burn pit as preset, with accelerant evidence present, indicating arson intended to cover a murder. Interviews and forensics began to point to people close to Holley. One man was arrested. Another would be accused of helping cover it up. On July 14, 2008, Corporal John Patrick Wimunc, Holley's husband stationed at Camp Lejeune, was charged with first-degree murder, first-degree arson, and conspiracy in her death. Also arrested that day was Lance Corporal Kyle Ryan Alden, a Marine acquaintance, charged with accessory after the fact to first-degree murder, second-degree arson, and conspiracy. Agents traced a black pickup truck, borrowed by Kyle Alden on the evening of July 9, the night before Holley vanished. Witnesses reported a male figure running from Holley's apartment carrying a bag, entering a black pickup and speeding away. The movement of Holley's remains some 130 miles from her apartment to the burn site aligned with the truck's log and witness statements. The case shifted from missing person to murder, and the questions became sharper. Charges filed against John Wimunc and Kyle Alden formalized the shift, no longer simply a disappearance but a plan, a concealment, and a violent end for Holley. On August 5, 2008, a hearing was held to preserve critical evidence in the case, signaling the prosecution's preparation for trial. Forensic technicians tested for accelerants in the apartment fire. They cataloged trace evidence in carpet backing, isolated fibers where the carpet was removed, and logged the absence of knives. Together, these physical clues painted a timeline: fire to destroy, removal of tools/weapons, relocation of remains. During his interview, Wimunc admitted to drinking and told agents he would talk later, drawing suspicion. Agents meanwhile discovered Holley had filed a protective order against him earlier that year, on May 19, 2008, for alleged threats and a gun incident. Later the order lapsed, another piece of the pattern. Holley's friends described the day she disappeared. She left work, her children were with their father, she was expected home. Instead, her apartment was burning, and she was gone. Those friends became witnesses, recounting phone logs and misdialed messages that preceded her disappearance. At Sneed's Ferry, investigators documented a shallow grave containing most of Holley's remains. The burn pit site had been set to scramble identification. Autopsy confirmed the cause of death: gunshot wound to the head. The transport of her body to this remote area raised new inquiries. How was the body moved? By whom? Under what timeline? The vehicle traced to the black pickup truck became critical. Legal proceedings moved quickly. On July 15, 2008, both Wimunc and Alden appeared in court in Cumberland County. Their charges covered both the murder of Holley and the arson of her apartment, tying the fire scene and the remains together in one chain of events. Every piece of the broken carpet, every missing knife slot, every scarred wall in the apartment, every trace in the burn pit added volume to a story of calculated violence. Investigators said they had moved beyond a missing person file. This was homicide, cleverly concealed and executed in stages. In the final segment, we'll tackle what happened after the arrests: guilty pleas, life sentences, what the family endured, and what this case forced the military to confront. Stay with us. 2 people would face justice for Holley's murder. The legal system would deliver verdicts, but the wound for her family would not heal. In March 2015, Corporal John Patrick Wimunc pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, first-degree arson, and conspiracy to commit arson in the death of 2nd Lieutenant Holley Lynn James Wimunc. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Earlier, on September 23, 2010, Lance Corporal Kyle Ryan Alden pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact to first-degree murder, second-degree arson, and conspiracy to commit arson. He was sentenced to 44 to 62 months in prison. Her father read a letter into the courtroom that said simply, "Many people loved Holley, and you took her all away from us." His voice caught as he described nights when grief overtook him. Friends spoke of Holley as faithful, bright and caring, a protector of those she loved. Holley's story raised deeper alarms about violence against women in uniform and about the hidden fights some service members wage at home. The base community revisited policies about domestic violence, especially after other female service members were killed or disappeared in the region. Support groups for military spouses and women in uniform referenced her case in training and awareness campaigns. This is the part of the story that still asks for action, remembrance, accountability, and support for those who are vulnerable. Her children grew up without their mother. Her friends carry the memory of her laughter and service. Her family carries the loss. The case remains a cautionary tale. Right in front of the world, a young Army nurse vanished, and the one person closest to her became the one responsible. The justice system has run its course, but healing is still ongoing. If you found this story meaningful, consider subscribing and clicking the notification bell so you stay connected with more deep dives into cases like this.